someone is also recording this with an AI recorder. So your conversation will be kept sort of by an AI chatbot. So just to be forewarned, not by us, but by someone who is attending. Okay. This is an extension. Welcome, everyone. This is an extension of our artificial intelligence webinar from last month, where we had three really interesting presentations. The first by Steve on what AI, how it kind of works. And then by Senna, who's here, I think. I think she was here. I don't know where she is right now. Who gave us a chatbot that she had trained to help develop some lessons and interpret a stock flow diagram, which I thought was really interesting. And Benjamin Chung from South Korea, who talked about the fact that AI hallucinates and how it could be used um, as a positive teaching thing to help students be doubtful about information that is just given to them on the internet and how they need to be really critical and double check. And I think that's really a good way to look at that particular detraction feature of artificial intelligence. Anyway, this is not going to be a webinar format. I think Emre's going to talk for 5 or 10 minutes on a plug-in that he developed for Moodle courses to give AI responses to open-ended questions, which is really, really clever. Of course, he's incredibly clever. He's so he has so much talent. It's so much fun to work with him and to learn from him. So he will talk to us about that. And then I have done an experiment with taking text and getting it translated to a stock flow model. And I want to show you some of those experiments. And then hopefully that'll probably take 5 minutes. And then hopefully we'll have the rest of the time for conversation. Okay. Emre, would you like to start?
Yes, of course. And uh, before beginning the presentation, I want to state a disclaimer for those who do not know that I am not an expert in the subjects I will be presenting. So I am not an expert in the subjects I will be presenting. So, but the aim of this presentation is sharing some of my experiences on trying to use AI in our association's online systems thinking courses. This is the gateway. This is our web page. Uh, the courses are on a Moodle platform. Moodle is a free and open source learning management system written in PHP. I have some knowledge gained by trial and error on installing Moodle on a Linux server. So I have access to the back end of the platform. I also have some PHP coding knowledge, which I learned by tinkering. So relying on this background, I decided to write a software component that adds an open-ended question capability to Moodle. Uh, these type of software components are called plugins in Moodle. So I will try to show what I tried to do. This is our web page, and from that web page, this is the Moodle first homepage. Uh, I will log in. These are the courses. Actually, the first two, these two are real courses that anyone can take free of charge. The last two are playgrounds for AI experiments. We will proceed this one, AI-powered open-ended question experiments. Uh, we can think of this plugin or this part as an assessment step after a video or an article assignment. So not in this case, but this can be used in this way to create a question. First, I have to open this to edit mode. I have to check this to add an activity or resource. When you press this button, we see the plugins. All the plugins are the ones that came with the installation, the basic installation, except this one. This one was the activity we will work on. When you select this, this page appears, and we can give a name, question 1, for example. And this is not compulsory, so I'll skip here. So this is the question about systems thinking, any kind of question. And of course, I prepared one, a very simple one. Give an example of a stock, explain how it changes with which flows. So I put this here, and then this is my expected answer. I also put this here. And I leave this part maximum attempts 0, and 0 means unlimited. So when I save and return to the course, the question is now set by the teacher. Now I'm going to switch to, again, this side, but I'm going to log in as a student now. And hopefully, yes. Okay. So when I log in, I only see these two because I enrolled these two. In the practice board part, these are previous uh, trials. Uh, in the practice board, when I click this, I only have one part to fill, and this is the question that I have just entered. Of course, no expected answer is listed. So this might be one of my answers. So give an example of a stock, and I just give one. And when you send this, we are currently the answer, the expected answer, and the question is sent to Claude, and reply is waited. And but this is in Turkish. I can change this to English, I think.
The answers are in English. The explanation. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Well, because in the prompt that you do not see that, but I will explain a little bit later. The answer is evaluation is regulated or decided on which the language you use. So it just looks here and decides, or it just looks your answer, and if it is in which language the answer, the evaluation, all this thing comes on that language, regardless of the model's selected language. But I just put change the language for our convenience, and so I get 7 with all kinds of feedback. But this should be correct, or maybe next one this will change to English. This is the correct ones. This is the missing, and there is no wrong part in the answer. So these are all coming from Claude AI. So I read them and decided to uh, have another try.
You need to put the F for 4.
Yes.
Oh, never mind.
Or,
Okay.
but I have just
Yeah.
clicked. And anyway, but I'm from 7 to 8. I have just one more. My second attempt is a little bit better. And this might be this one will be what I am going to get because this is not my first time. But this is another good point to show that this evaluation constantly, reliably gives the same points. So I get another 9. I was getting always 9 on the very the same question or the same answer is evaluated with the same point. So this was my plugin. All it does is this, and uh, but when we change to so what how this was done, this is a Miro board, and I'm going to share the link for the Miro board after the presentation, or I can well after the presentation. So this is when we select this, we are actually putting this prompting in this part. Let me enter full screen. So the prompt sent to AI uh, is consists of two parts. One a system prompt, and the other the prompt. So system prompt has some special parts like you have to give a role and some general guidelines. This is the variable section. This part. This is a PHP code that when you give all the question, the expected answer and the student's answer, this part is the part that you entered, and this is the variable part sent. And this part, if this is some details, but this is how I want Moodle to evaluate, and most of this part was taken from the Moodle itself. So I let him write an evaluation prompt and how the scoring will be done. And you can this link just goes to the drive folder. This is a zip file, and it's ready to be installed in Moodle. But of course, as I've written here, at your own risk, it doesn't seem to hurt anything in the Moodle setup, but you should be cautious to use it. But these are all text files, and you can open and get inspiration from it. And the last thing, maybe, is this reliability problem. Can we trust AI? Well, we trust humans, but not 100%. The guide rails for humans are other humans. So I think maybe we can use this approach for AI too. We can make evaluations transparent, and we can open all the way, providing an objection, kind of objection, very handy or very easily done. Uh, so by this way, if we this is a kind of way I try to present my thinking in a stock flow diagram. Uh, the initial quality and initial prompt quality is the thing that increases the quality of assessment, but there might be some inherent quality decrease, and the assessment of the student or the parent or anyone or the professor, anyone, uh, can be used to prompt to update the prompt. A little bit complicated version of this is like this. You can just check this out. And well, I think I don't think much re-evaluation will be necessary comparing the time saved, quality gained after improving such a system. So I just suggest using open-ended questions for system thinking questions might be very well good be used in evaluation, and in itself, if you give uh, an unlimited number of trials, it can be a tool for learning. And thank you.
Thank you, Emre. Usually what we do is have the second presentation and then conversation, and then we can separate the recordings into the recorded part of the presentation and the conversation part of the presentation. Is that okay with you all if we do that this time? Okay, because I'm sure there are some questions for Emre, and I feel a little bad not giving some time for that right now. But if you will allow me, my presentation is very short, and then we can just open it up for general conversation. All right. Again, as everyone has said, I also am not an expert in AI, but we have been playing around with it, trying to figure out how we might use AI to assist in instruction, and especially systems thinking and system dynamics type instruction, since that's our focus. So I was wondering, it's hard for people sometimes, especially new teachers, new people to AI and instruction or systems thinking and system dynamics. How do you even get started with a stock flow diagram? So I thought, well, is it possible to have a text and have it make its own stock flow diagram? And it turns out, yes, of course, there are some problems with the stock flow diagram sometimes. If it's simple, it turns out to be pretty good. I have done some examples. I have not done an exhaustive set of examples. I will show you the examples that I have done. Okay, so share my screen. Here we go. So using artificial intelligence to help teachers determine beginning stock flow diagrams for potential modeling lessons. Okay. Now, I used Claude 3.5 Sonnet, which is a generative artificial intelligence. And I did this because in my reading on the internet, it said Sonnet was especially good for creating computer code. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to get Sonnet to create computer code, which we are then going to open up in a system dynamics modeling software. Okay, so it's especially good for producing programming code. You can access, I only have free versions. I have free version of Chat GPT 4.0 and a free version of Claude Sonnet. The free versions actually are terrific to experiment with. Of course, you can only use it for like a very limited number of questions, and then you have to wait 3 hours to use it again. So if this were something I depended on professionally, I would have to consider how to get a professional copy of it. This is where I got my copy of Sonnet. So I figured this is maybe, actually, I'm not a novice to system dynamics modeling, and I found this extremely interesting. But I thought maybe it could be used with novice people to modeling, system dynamics modeling. But we'll see how much it interests you. So I started out with I started out with a simple model, a simple text, and I actually got it to work. And so then I tried a really difficult text, which I explained a lot of detail in the prompt, and I got that to mostly work. And I thought, well, it's not very useful if people have to know the model already and explain it to create the model again. So then I went back and tried more simple text examples to see what would work and what wouldn't work. So the very first one, and here's the prompt, I want you to create X-mile code for a system dynamic simulation of the population of the United States starting in 1950 and extending to 2020. And I want you to create a graph. It should include population, births, and deaths as well. And so it created this model, which I thought, well, hey, that's looking pretty good for just those few sentences. This did create the XMile code, and I'm going to show you more detail and the exact steps I went through, but not for this example. It produced the correct population stock flow model, but it did not put in the correct values. It did not give me the correct birth rate for 1950 or death rate or starting population. So even though the diagram looked okay, it wasn't very satisfactory. So then I decided I better look up some statistics, give it a little more detail. It should have a starting population of this, a birth rate of that, a death rate of this, and create a graph. Now, you can't get a graph from any of these. I've gotten a graph on rare occasion, kind of as a fluke. I have no idea how that happened. But I talked to IC Systems and they said, he looked at the code and he said, the code there shouldn't even produce a graph. So don't depend on it. You're going to have to make your own graphs. And I figured, okay, if I've got a decent model, I can easily set up a graph. So this gave me the same stock flow diagram, and it produced like I said, the correct diagram, and it put in the correct starting population, birth fraction, and death fraction. It did not produce a graph. So I thought, well, this isn't too bad. It's not that hard to look up some of these statistics online. So then I thought a banking model. Create an XMile code for a checking account, starts at $1,000, annual interest rate of 5%, and a monthly deposit of $2,000. So it created the code, and I'll tell you what you have to do to the code to be able to open it up in Stella Online. So this is what it opened up into Stella Online, which is like all crunched together. But actually, when you spread it out, this is what this code looks like, this diagram looks like when you spread it out. So it took the annual interest rate and made it into a monthly interest rate by itself, and did the interest earned based on the monthly, because I told it was a monthly deposit, and it created a second flow with a monthly deposit. And everything, all the values, everything, all the numbers were correct. Now, it's not putting units in. It won't do that. But, well, I haven't tried to tell it what the units were. But it did put all the numbers in the right spot. It gave me an absolutely correct stock flow model, and with all the correct values in it. And I thought, well, that's pretty promising. So I said, let's do this, but let's send 10% of the amount of checking to a savings account, and the saving account earns 10% interest compounded monthly. And so it produced something compressed, but then when I stretched it out, it produced this. And all of this is also correct. All the numbers and all the pieces are correct. The flows are correct to the right stocks, and moving from the checking to the savings is correct, and having the savings have its own interest flow is correct. I thought, this is pretty impressive if it's just going from text. So it correctly started savings at 0, because I didn't tell it what the beginning savings amount was. Again, no units were specified, and I quit asking it to give me a graph. So these are the steps. You open your software, you type in your prompt, which I've given you, but you say, I want you to create XMile code, because XMile is the programming language that creates Stella models. Okay, that's the code behind the Stella software. And so it gives you all this in Claude. Now you're able to click on a copy button next to the code. I think it's in the upper right-hand column of the code. So you click on the copy and you put it, I put it in a Word document, and I save it as a text file. You have to save it as a text file. So I saved it as a text file. And then once you save it as a text file, then you have to remove the txt file extension and write type stmx as the file extension, because all Stella models must end in stmx. Okay. And then I just opened it up in Stella Online. And that's how I got it to give me the stock flow model for what I just did. So these are the steps I went through. Okay. Now, in one of my presentations, or actually several presentations on sustainability and stuff, I have created this particular model that works. I created it in Stella from scratch, and it works. And it shows kind of the Easter Island idea, where the reindeer population are, well, Easter Island, it wasn't reindeer, but where this is actually the model I used for St. Matthew Island, where it was reindeer. Um, it's overshoot and collapse for the reindeer population, and the vegetation is just a slow and then increasing collapse of vegetation, because it only has an outflow, because the regeneration on St. Matthew Island of the lichen that the reindeer ate was very, very long to reproduce. And so it might as well have only no regeneration. So I thought, I wonder if it can give me this if I tell it a lot of detail. So I gave it a lot of detail. I told it exactly what I wanted. So this was my prompt: population of deer starting at 29, and what the birth fraction was, what the death fraction was, vegetation start at 25,000 vegetation units, outflow of consumption, deer consume the vegetation. And then I explained, let me go back. Oh, I can't go back. I think if I go back, I'm going to lose this. Anyway, there's a dimensionless multiplier, a graphical converter in my original model. So I said, construct a graphical converter. It told it what the domain was, the beginning and ending value on the horizontal axis, the beginning and ending value on the vertical scale, and assume that the graph is concave down, and build the stock flow and run it for a simulated 25 years. And so this was the code, and then it's longer than this. I got the XMile code, and it produced this model, which really surprised me. There were some mistakes. There was a mistake here. There were a couple of mistakes here in the graphical converter. It did not define the horizontal axis correctly. I had to fix that. And the other mistake was stupid. I asked it for a concave down curve, and it gave me a concave up curve. Now, how in the world can AI get that wrong? I mean, that's like a simple idea. So I fixed the independent variable here, and I had to go back and change the prompt to concave up, even though that was a mistake. And it did give me a concave down curve when I did that, which, don't ask me why that happened. And I did get the overshoot and collapse just the way I wanted it. So I was pretty darned amazed at that. Okay. So then just recently, I had asked Emre for the story. This is for a different reason, for another person who asked for this story. One of their primary teachers was trying to use storytelling for systems thinking, to teach about systems thinking. And she created this wonderful story about green flies. So I thought, what if I give it the text of the green flies story? What's it going to do with that? So if you will allow me 1 minute, it's 2 screens worth of text for the whole story. But if you don't know what's in the text, you won't appreciate what comes after. So this is about 2 girls trying to keep their garden healthy but these green flies are eating the leaves and destroying the garden. And so they try to solve that problem. I'm not going to pronounce this right. Duga, Doga,
Doğa.
Doa,
Yes.
and Mina ran into the garden. They were excited to put the stuff their mother asked into their basket. They sniffed the thyme, took a piece of it, shook some tomatoes, picked them, and started investigating the flowers of the cucumbers. Just then they saw a shadow under the leaves. They bent down to see it closely. An insect holding a leaf was walking slowly. They did not care much and took the basket into the kitchen. A couple of hours later, they went out to the garden again. Worried, they checked out the leaves. The green flies were still there, but this time there were 5 of them.
Doğa.
Dua, dua. Okay. Dua shouted, Mom, insects are walking on the leaves. Mina shouted, Run, Mom, run. Mother came to their side and said with a smile on her face, These are green flies. Green flies like plants a lot. They settle on the leaves and start eating them. Weakening the leaves, they turn yellow, Nina said. So they get sick, don't they? Oh my, they're going to. How are we going to get rid of the green flies? Shall we apply pesticides? Yes, we can apply pesticides, but there may be alternative solutions, said Mother. Dua and Mina said wonderfully, let's find out, let's search the internet. Mina brought the tablet computer, brought the tablet computer. All the answers they found were about pesticides. What if we apply pesticides? Any other solutions? They keep on searching. Mina, Dua, and Mina were checking the leaves every day. In a few days, the leaves first wrinkled, then faded, and faded even more. They thought and thought they have to help the plants thrive. They tried to wash the leaves with water, but the insects were so firmly attached to the leaves, the solution was impossible. The leaves were left soaking. They tried to wave cardboard to create a wind effect. The green flies did not move a bit, but their hair did. They were analyzing green flies by counting them one by one. On Monday, there were 5. On Tuesday, 10. On Wednesday, 20. On Thursday, 40. On Friday, there were too many to count. Somehow they should remove the green flies from the leaves. Who knows how large a number will be there as the days go by? While they were thinking, something red flew by. Yes, this was a ladybug. It quickly went to the leaves. Dua followed and watched, and when spreading the leaves, she saw there were many ladybugs. They were eating the other insects. Here's the solution, shouted Mina. Dua said, okay then, let's see which plants the ladybugs like the most. Let's learn and seed the garden with them. They searched and searched. Dill and fennel were found. They also like cucumbers. Okay, Mother said, let's sow these plants in different places in the garden. This way they can host the ladybugs. Mina was giggling. Ha ha ha, very funny name. What's up? There's another plant ladybugs like, dwarf morning glories. Isn't that funny? Morning glories, but a dwarf one. Ha ha ha. All laughed and checked what kind of plant it was. On Saturday, they started planting new plants at various places. Dill had already been planted. They moved some of them to other places. On Sunday, they started to examine the number of green flies every day. At the end of the week, green flies were everywhere. Fortunately, ladybugs just started to arrive. In time, the plants started to thrive, even the faded ones. The solution they found had worked. They kept raising new plants in their garden and built a colorful bug hotel for their cute ladybug guests. Sorry, that was very fast. However, I just put that in as the prompt. Got the XMile code, and this is what it produced. Just from that story with nothing else, it gave me a ladybug population, it gave me a green fly population, and it gave me a plant health population. The plant health has recovery and damage, and it's exponential with a recovery rate and a damage rate per green fly. The green fly has a reproduction and deaths flows with a reproduction rate. Now, the reproduction rate was wrong because if you look at the numbers, it was doubling each day. But here, it's the reproduction rate is 40%, which is not doubling each day. Okay. And then a predation rate that it's set up for the ladybug population. And the ladybug is attracted by beneficial plants and some kind of attraction rate. This was kind of amazing to me from a story that didn't have much. I mean, it had all the pieces, but not in any way that would tell, in my opinion, code to produce this. And when I made a model for this, look, the health of the plants is going down as the green flies are the lime green, the ladybugs are red, and the health of the plant is dark green, and the green flies are decreasing as the, I'm sorry, the plant health is decreasing as the green flies are increasing. And when the ladybugs just automatically seem to come, the green flies start decreasing. And as they decrease, the health starts increasing. Now, the graph of the plant health can go negative. So you could change that. It started plant health at 100, which makes sense. 100% health at the beginning. That kind of made sense. We could fix it if we decided, but I was just amazed that it could take that story and produce this reasonable stock flow diagram. So I think there's some potential here for helping people who want to take a story and translate it for the first time into a stock flow. People who haven't gotten used to doing this all the time, reading the text and creating the stock flow diagram from scratch. Anyway, I thought it was cool and I wanted to show it to you. Now, let me stop this for a minute, and I want to share one more thing from last time. You asked last time in September, how did Senna train her chatbot? In the webinar last month, she had a chatbot that produced ST lessons, a primary lesson, a middle school lesson, a high school lesson. And how did it learn to translate a stock flow diagram that she gave to explain the feedback and stuff? She only used two things. She used the Systems Thinking in Education textbook, which is, by the way, free on our System Dynamic Society webpage, written by Emre and the Systems Thinking Association in Turkey. He has a Turkish version, which we didn't put up, but he has an English version, which we did put up. It's pretty extensive. So she did that. And then the model teaching notes of George Richardson, the draft, the pre-publication draft version. She did that. And this was the prompt that she also gave to the software in advance, telling it what it should be as a chatbot. So this was requested last time, and I wanted to make sure that I showed you this from Senna as promised. Okay, so I am going to stop sharing, and now we're done. Please ask any questions of Emre or me, and we will try to, it's all experiment, and we're just trying to share what we're learning as we experiment with this new technology that is truly going to change education in some fairly significant ways. If you can raise your hand, I will call on you. But anyone who has questions, I'm okay. Steve?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you to both of you. This great, fabulous presentations, the two of them. I have a question for each of you, but I think, Diane, I'll start with you because that's the most recent one. I just wondered for the story at the end that you presented, you said you just put in the story, but was there a prompt? Did you ask the computer to do something with the story, or did you just...
I asked it like I did before. Give me the XMile code that to create a stock flow simulation for the following story.
Okay.
And then I just put in the
no
story.
more than that.
That's it.
That
was
was
all
what
I
you
did.
Okay.
I was amazed.
Yeah.
I was
Well,
really, it was kind of
interesting.
exciting.
I mean, I don't know if people were here last month when we did this. But one of the interesting things about these large language models is that they, using these neural nets, they create context. So they will run that text through several filters, several versions of this filter, and sort of compartmentalize it within the realm of system dynamics before it goes and then starts creating what it is you're looking for. So that part to me is amazing, that just from text that can do all of that.
Now, in the AI, different versions of AI, they set up little threads of conversations on the side. So I picked the thread where I was having it do translations from prompt to XMile code. And so it was not the first one of those. It was in that conversation thread that I used the story.
Mm-hmm.
That was the last thing so
Okay.
it had done some of that before the other examples that I showed you.
Right.
So Emre, did you want to?
Oh, I have a question. Emre, I'm really intrigued by what you did. And it's what you did targeted kind of question and answer. And it's from the very beginning of all of this AI stuff, I've been imagining setting up a learning situation essentially where you have three pieces, right? You have the student who's talking to the teacher about something, and you have the AI that's kind of listening in and using what it gets from listening as training. And I wonder if you could imagine doing a very similar. It sounds like what you did is very similar to that I might be able to put together some kind of on an LMS, put together something where the teacher's talking and the AI is listening and adding comment back, so that you have this three-way conversation going where everybody's learning. Essentially, the teacher's learning, the AI is learning, and the student is learning.
Well, this was, or this approach was the approach that I applied for since a couple of years in a university course about systems thinking, and it was not a Moodle course. It was the platform was a Blackboard, and I give the questions to the students. These are Master of Art students, but at most 15 or 20 students. So give uh, I didn't give any limit to the attempts they made, and they have infinite yes, they have that, they can do that, but in a couple of one, two, three, or at most four or five trials, they found this solution, the correct answer. Uh, but it was very time consuming to uh, answer each or evaluate and give an answer, satisfactory answer to each student's each attempt. I put uh, a kind of automation in this using an Excel routine, but uh, it is very limited for maybe 2 or 20 or maybe 30 students. But with this one, you do not have any restriction about the number of students, and all the response time is, as you can see, a couple of not a minute. So uh, all kinds of responses for an open-ended question is there. Actually, you have the explanation, you have the point, and you have the freedom to do another attempt. So this opens up very much space for learning if that student is willing to learn. But if it doesn't, then I don't know any method opening up his brain and getting things into his brain. So I don't know if that was the question or I was answering the wrong
Well,
question.
well, yeah, I think it certainly addresses the question. I'm just wondering if within an LMS like this, like Moodle or Google Classroom or something like that, you could like I know that there are places where you can have conversations going on,
Yes.
right? And could an AI be included in those conversations? Like I think is what I'm thinking.
Hmm.
And they don't have to be real-time conversations. They could be conversations that are going on, offline. But so, for example, imagine that a teacher gives an assignment for a student to read uh, a certain passage or a chapter in a book, and puts into the AI, look, I'm really interested in whether the students have understood X, Y, and Z from this reading that they did, and then ask the student after the reading to give a summary of what they learned, and then have the AI respond to the summary based on what the teacher had said, right? And then when the teacher reads the response, that you might say, "Well, no, 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 that's not exactly what I wanted you to respond," and could train the AI to be
Okay.
better to give better responses. So you have this kind of three-way conversation that's going on all the time, um, where everybody's learning, and of course it's the student that I'm
Well,
interested in.
that can be done with this kind of a setup, I think, because you are always open. The teacher is always capable of opening and updating the expected answer. According to the students' answers and students' maybe misconceptions, the expected answer might be updated. Actually, it's a prompt within a prompt. The expected answer is also a prompt, actually, but uh, much more pointed to the
Mhm.
question.
Yeah, no, really interesting. So
So
thank you again.
one of the issues here is if the teacher gives the student the homework assignment to type in their understanding of it, there's no way to stop them from using AI to help create the response. If they
AI
do it
versus AI.
in class, if yeah, then they got AI talking to AI.
Right.
If
But
they
then,
do it in
if
class,
the teacher then reads that and says, no, 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 this isn't exactly what I want, then the AI changes. So that's what it's kind of like a safeguard on the AI. You're watching it to make sure that it's giving the correct answer.
Well, actually, the other project I'm working on is to currently AI do not create very good graphs or drawings. Uh, so I was planning for teachers to ask for a drawing, a kind of stock flow diagram or a graph from the student, and the student is expected to upload a drawing. So by this way, it might not be that much easy to create. It is
right,
actually you can just make the AI do the drawing, but if he can or she can do that, I think it's much better because that shows that he understood or she understood the topic. Uh,
yeah,
if she can
it's
create
it
the model from Stella, for example, make the
right,
drawings and then copying it to his hand drawing. So,
right,
but
right.
I think Henny is waiting.
Yes. So, Henny,
Yeah, it was interesting discussion anyhow, so it didn't matter that I had to wait a little. Well, I was wondering, I have several questions. One of the, I think a rather easy one, but is it only Stella that accepts Xmile code, or are there other applications like Fansim or maybe Insight Maker? You don't know, so
I think
okay, that's really
Benson will
expects.
take it. You
Yes.
just have to
Xmile. Yeah,
change it
yeah,
to
yeah,
an
okay. Yeah,
MDL file.
yeah, just wondering about that. And the other thing I found interesting was, did you ever try to take a Stella model and then transfer it to text?
well, I think Senna
Yes.
should answer that question because Senna, uh,
Did that?
are you active, Senna, or are you just in the background?
I'm here, but I need to hear the question again.
I was wondering if you ever tried to take a Stella model or from another application, just transfer it, like take the XML code and then ask it an AI to transfer that to text, like an explanation of the
Mhm.
model.
What I have tried was not with the code, but the picture itself. So
Okay.
whenever I created a model on Stella Online or a ready-made model that I didn't create, but I found somewhere that I can take the picture of it and then I I used it with ChatGPT and also with Cloud AI, and that it was explaining what is the stock and what is the flow here and what kind of interaction is happening there. So it was explaining, and then it can, if you would ask, then it can also make a story out of it.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you so much. Yeah,
Mhm.
lovely. Thank you. I
Yeah,
have
you're
another
welcome.
I have another question that's for Emily. It's just more like a check if I understood correctly. But what I've seen you doing is that you have a question and you have like an expected answer. And what the system does is take out all the parts of the out of the answer that a student needs to provide to have a perfect answer. And then the system is assessing on that. Is that correct?
Yes, actually, it is uh, basically it is comparing the answer with the expected answer.
Yes, exactly. Well, I find it interesting because a little time in last week, I wrote a little text and I asked the ChatGPT to take all the claims I made out of the text, and I was actually quite surprised that it was able to do so. So he made a list of claims I made. So it's actually something similar to what you have done, as if you ha write an answer, then it's actually kind of um, taking it apart and say these are all the elements in the answer that makes it a good answer. Is that so?
Yes. Well,
Okay.
actually, I was trying to narrow down the reply because if you do not give any expected answer, it can also evaluate something, assess something, and give very reliable answers. But I want to narrow the reply to the expected answer because in some way you can decide to put something in front of another thing, and you can just
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah,
you
I think
might
it's
have
very clever. I think it's very clever because like an AI can also make mistakes. So if you do it like that,
you
you
can
kind
avoid
of
that.
yeah, you can avoid
Um,
that. So it's very clever. Thank you so much, Emma.
you're welcome.
I was concerned. I love your idea, Emre. I have still two concerns besides the asking them to do it for homework. One is if you ask them to do it in class and they hand write out the answers, then you have to type all the answers in, all the student answers in. So I wanted to see if we could just take a snapshot of a handwritten,
But
answer
what
and
I was thinking
see
was not
if,
the handwriting. I was planning to do for them for a student to do a drawing by hand and take a
yeah,
picture of it and upload it.
yeah,
The student the teacher wouldn't be bothered on
yeah, that's
things.
good. The other thing is, how many times can you ask AI to respond before you run out of time or whatever it is? Even if you have a commercial version, if you have a actually paid version, because my AIs are both the free version that you get to experiment with, but if you have a commercial version and you're doing this for a class, or the school has a commercial version and you're putting this into a course, when do you run out of ability for the AI to respond? Because it only gives you so many responses, right? And isn't that right? You can only ask the question so many times, ask it
I
questions
don't
so
think
many times.
there before that limit. I think you should be more concerned about the cost of it. I didn't calculate it, but it might be costly. But the sure thing is the cost will be going down or
Yeah,
currently very
yeah, yeah,
fast. So, uh, and if you compare cost with the cost of the teacher, I think the AI will be very beneficial. So, and you can uh, use the teacher's time for much more things that
Right.
AI cannot do, like creating expected answers, for example. Uh,
Right. Well, I mean, we are going to find a way to fold this into our instruction because for teachers, it provides a lot of opportunities. I'm surprised how I have had it help me do some work since I first learned about using it. And so but the kids are going to learn faster, just like when you teach programming. So I taught programming for like 35 years. And every time I really try to know things before my students always come up with stuff that I have not yet learned because they have so much more time to play. And if they want to play, they will play. And so you develop a symbiotic relationship where they teach you and you praise them for teaching you and you teach them, and it's a nice relationship. But I think that's what's going to happen with AI as well. Any other questions or comments or experiments that you have done that you would like to share? Anyone? Du Feng Shui, ask to unmute. You can unmute yourself. Oh no, Brian. Is that Brian? Oh no. Sorry about that. I think my cursor was in the wrong spot. So please unmute yourself and just raise your hand or use the Zoom button or question. Any other questions? Okay, Martha.
I'm of a very mixed mind, as I'm sure we all are, and going tentatively with how AI is going to help. And I think overall it's going to be just fantastic. Um, uh, uh, Diane, I've always hung on to your and have experienced a lot of times your comment that it's the building of the model process itself, which is just so incredibly inspiring. All these things bubble up, bubble up, bubble up. It's such a creative phase and a concern with AI that I would have that I see here is, oh, well, now we're getting this computer to do it. So we're robbing the student perhaps of this incredibly important and I think very, very under visibilized, or however you say, transmitting to the and trying to get out of this perception of systems thinking as being all analysis, analysis, analysis paralysis. It's so creative. But now I see this and I think, oh gosh, even Jay Forrester, he wanted, I learned in the seminar series, he really wanted system dynamics trained people to be able to evaluate models and do confidence testing and whatnot. And I think now this is fantastic that AI has the capacity for the student to go ahead and plug in whatever, have the model created so that feasibly they have more time now to do what Jay Forrester wanted with these two phases of being able to critically evaluate models and then that in parallel with the ability they would sort of dovetail off each other and enhance our ability to be creative and go through the actual model building phase. So I just think we just always have to maybe even I don't know, articulate or let it happen spontaneously. I'll never forget when I after I knew about your comment that gosh, she's right, it's incredibly creative. And I wouldn't have valued that for my own process in recognizing that the model building process is its own questions engendering. It engenders more questions than it answers. To me, it seems like the specialists go off and get the answers in the context, but this is so critical. And how can AI perhaps enhance this instead of Martha feeling like, oh my God, it's robbing us. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's doing actually what Jay Forrester really originally did want was these two streams where you're reading and learning how to critically evaluate. And then maybe that and is its own leads into its own creative phase of getting in and being more confident to actually build a model.
Well, I would still stay with the model building process is incredibly powerful. And
Yeah,
I would still want my students to look at the text and try to come up with which are the stocks and things like that. But as a
right.
teacher making lessons, I'm always looking for good stories. And if I can look at a story and have it, if I could use AI to have it give me a beginning stock flow diagram, it would develop the way I might present a lesson. I was
Okay.
thinking of this as for teachers who have specific stories that they haven't seen a model for, and they might want to get an idea of what a model could be. I don't know. I think building models is definitely terrific, but there are lots of stories for which we don't have models, and it may be kind of
Yeah.
hard to think about what a model could be. So it's
Yeah.
just sort of a way, it's just another way to try to get an idea of what a model might look at. But you have to analyze it. So that's also good.
Yeah.
What AI gives you, you have to analyze because there's no guarantee that it really is correct or, correct enough to use.
Yeah,
Henny?
true.
Yeah.
Diana, I think are you muted?
Yeah. Henny, go ahead. I'm sorry, Henny.
Okay,
Go
no,
ahead.
I'm just looking at the time, and I wanted to ask you and Emre something, and I was wondering if you could stay behind a little bit after the session is over. That's all I wanted to ask now.
Sure. Sure. We
Yeah,
can stay for a little bit.
lovely.
Yes.
Thank
Emre?
you.
And well, for Martha, I think uh, there is no one way to make a model. There are many uh, versions of a model, and AI can be used uh, as a companion. I modeled this way, and you can ask an AI to create a model, and now try to make another version of this model, change your assumptions, and do another one. And we can think of this as a kind of exercise, working with a colleague, uh, not a human one, but it can use we can use this.
Well, we are over time. We're happy to stay, but I know many of you have other commitments. If you need to leave, please feel free to leave. We will put the recording of this up, as well as the conversation on our webpage. So you will be able to see it there. Are there any other questions? We can stay for a little bit. Okay, well, thank you very much. We'll stay, Henny. We'll stay for you to ask. Thank you very much. And oh, we have a symposium coming February 22nd, a virtual symposium for systems thinking and system dynamics. It will be 5 hours. It's kind of like a conference to bring together teachers and researchers on K-12 systems thinking and system dynamics in the classroom. So please, we'll start advertising that pretty soon, but
Free.
save that date. It's a Saturday, February 22nd, 2025,
It's a
and you'll get
free
more
event,
detail.
free.
It's free. Yes, it's free and it's virtual. So, and we will keep all the recordings online forever. So you will be able to always see all of the recordings. Okay. So I hope to see you next month when we work more on our peer bullying model. Next month, we will work again on our peer bullying model. Okay. See you next time. Bye.
Shall I stop recording or
Yes, stop recording.
okay?